Dog meat farmer explains why he did it, and how he got out. Millions of dogs are still farmed and slaughtered for food in South Korea each year, which is believed to be the only country in the world to commercially farm dogs for human consumption. While the tradition is now taboo among the younger generation, and despite it being officially classed as detestable, some people believe the meat increases their energy and health. To meet this demand, animals are kept locked up in tiny and filthy cages at farms throughout the country, which vary in size from small backyard operations to large-scale intensive farms. Many suffer from neglect and malnutrition, and the most common method of slaughter is electrocution. To view this video, please enable JavaScript, and consider upgrading to a web browser that supports HTML5 video. Like a lot of dog meat farmers in South Korea, Young-gyu fell into the trade completely by accident. He told metro.co.uk that it happened around 20 years ago, on a small scale at first, after he was handed some puppies to launch a career in the country's burgeoning pet trade. "Someone gave me several puppies, and they grew up and had more puppies," he said. "The puppies soon became lots of dogs, so I needed to sell the dogs eventually." To view this video, please enable JavaScript, and consider upgrading to a web browser that supports HTML5 video. But before long, Mr. Kim said he had more animals than he could handle, and he claims the only option he had left was to sell them for their meat from his farm in Gyeonggi-do province because there was no market for pet dogs. "No one asked me to sell them for their pets," he said. "I had more puppies and dogs than I could cope with, so I knew I had to sell them. I started to sell them for meat, which was not unusual as there are lots of dog meat farms." According to the Humane Society International, HSI, the dog meat trade and the pet trade in South Korea have been linked for some time. During the 1980s there was a drive to foster a trade for dogs as pets, so a breeding program for large breeds took off in a big way. But because most people live in flats in the cities, large breeds soon became undesirable, which meant many dogs ended up being abandoned or sold to farmers who bred them for meat because there was no market for pet dogs in a country where owning a pet is still a relatively new idea. And the legacy of this breeding program can still be felt in stories like Mr. Kim's, who said he found most dogs abandoned in front of his house, or that he was given them by people who didn't want them anymore. He said, "At the start it was a good business, but as time went on it became more difficult to make good money because eating dog is not as popular now." Mr. Kim said he knew the dogs were being sold for meat from his farm in Goyang, around 12 miles from Seoul, but refused to go into any further detail when pressed on this. He added, "I just couldn't sell the dogs anymore. It felt so bad whenever I sold dogs, so I tried to stop doing this, and I considered selling all of them all at once, but no one wanted to buy all of them." Eventually the farm was shut down in March 2017 thanks to the HSI, who managed to fly all 67 animals to America for adoption into loving homes. HSI's Adam Parascondola, Director of Animal Protection and Crisis Response, said, "In all the years that I've been part of our campaign to shut down the dog meat trade in Asia, I thought I'd seen it all until I first saw this facility. It literally took my breath away, not least because when we first entered the darkness, the stench was overpowering. The ammonia burned the back of our throats. We could hear the dogs' desperate barks, but we couldn't see their faces properly, just their eyes peering out. As we became accustomed to the darkness, we saw the pitiful state these poor animals had been living in. The farm was right on the public path next to the train tracks, but the people walking by would never have known what suffering it concealed." Mr. Kim, who now grows crops on the land and cares for his sick wife, says he is happy not to be selling dogs anymore. He said, "I'm very happy and grateful for Humane Society International so that I could stop. It's just so great not to have dogs anymore. I'm so happy for the dogs since I felt so bad whenever I sold them." And as for the trade? Mr. Kim is convinced it is on its knees. "I think it's absolutely dying now," he said. "I know several farms near my house, and their number of dogs are also declining very quickly, so I assume that they are closing their farm. I guess they don't get enough money." More, protester, 62. Attacked policeman with walking stick during violent EDL rally. More. Sergeant who told female PC to make the tea because you have tits keeps his job.